When you said the developing world cannot move to the developed world. You seem to conveniently forget that the developed world moved to the developing world without asking permission.
No, I don't.
It seems to me as well that this is a particularly Western-centric viewpoint, and a misleading one at that, because you know as well as I do, and the figures show it.
Tolerance, adaptation, and integration has become a thing of concern in today's society as people move from one place to another looking for greener pasture. Douglas Murray have a heated debate in Doha with an Islamic journalist concerning people moving from Syria to Malta and possibly to Italy. But then at the course of it, of course, the people got drawn, which involved both men and then women, including children in the process. Of course, let's get down to this video and then check this out.
Douglas Murray, thank you very much. A few provocative thoughts, no doubt, that you mentioned there. A few jumped at me, such as when you said the developing world cannot move to the developed world. You seem to conveniently forget that the developed world moved to the developing world without asking permission.
No, I don't.
It seems to me as well that this is a particularly Western-centric viewpoint, and a misleading one at that, because you know as well as I do, and the figures show it. 85% of the world's refugees, in fact, settle in neighboring countries in the Middle East,
sure,
in Africa and Asia. They do not rush over to Europe.
Sure. You'd make a big mistake if you think I hadn't heard of colonialism.
You don't seem to address it in any way.
And I'd also suggest, by the way, that I don't know how long we're going to go on about colonialism for. I'm happy to do it as long as you like. But let me just
have to be factful, though. Don't we have to be?
But also, don't think, if I may
history.
say so, that colonialism was just a Western thing. What was one of the largest and most significant empires in history, but the Ottoman Empire? Do we say that Turkey has to do something like the West to deal with Islam?
That's not the issue.
You brought up colonialism.
You are talking about the Western view that they should stay where they belong.
I'm saying that it seems to me to be much wiser that if you have a very large humanitarian crisis in, for instance, Syria, you try to make sure that people remain in the area. This isn't say all of them, but it is more likely. I absolutely agree they do. I've seen it firsthand.
Look at Turkey, 3.5 million refugees. Look at Lebanon and Jordan per capita.
What
the
I'm
countries that have
suggesting
the most.
to you is,
in fact, in Lebanon, you've got 1 in every 4 person living in that country is a Syrian refugee.
Absolutely.
So to suggest they're not doing very much is just being misleading, being dishonest.
Believe me, I'm not being misleading. And I said from the outset that I agree with the point that most refugees remain in the area. And I said that I think that that's a good idea. I'm suggesting to you that I think it's better that people, for instance, fleeing Syria, end up in the countries around Syria in order to be able to return to their country than putting them in Norway.
But they will return. You are suggesting that they don't want to return. Who in their right mind, if they had the option,
when did I say that?
And we will hear from a refugee, if they had the option to return, of course they'd want to return.
I didn't say they wouldn't.
They leave everything behind. But you seem to also be oblivious to another important fact that I just want to throw at you before we go to a video clip that I want to show you. It's, what about the moral responsibility, though, of Western countries that have contributed to the destabilization of the region, the meddling, the military interventions, not to mention the arms sales that continue as we speak? What about that?
Do you want me to answer that? Okay, I'll answer that one frankly. Nobody denies, for instance, the disaster of Iraq. But who are the people who intervened most in Syria?
Isn't just Iraq.
Hang on. Let me answer it. Who intervened most in Syria? It wasn't America. It wasn't Britain. It's Iran, Russia. It's, among others, countries, including the one we're in and others around the Gulf here.
Before we got to Syria, we had Iraq, we had Libya, we had many
countries in this neck of the woods were much more involved in the Syrian civil war than my country was.
Well, you're also
so do you want to take some responsibility for that? Do you want to take more refugees here in Qatar? Do you want to take more in the Gulf?
No one is immune to any sort of criticism. But we're talking about the Western countries, the British countries, the British countries.
What did Britain do in Syria?
We're talking about these governments that you seem to suggest should be immune.
No, when did I suggest that?
Absolved of any responsibility.
When did I suggest that?
I want to get to the other point that you make, and it's an important one, Douglas Murray. You suggest that we need to actually balance between two very important virtues, two important concepts of mercy toward the refugee and justice toward your own citizens. Let's take a quick look at this instance involving refugees.
Do you send anyone for us? We are the Syrians, about 300.
Sir, I give you the number of Malta authority because you are near Malta.
Hello?
Yes.
About 100 children and 100 women and maybe 100 men. Please hurry. Water is coming into it. The boat is going down. We are dying. 300 persons.
You have called Malta. You have called Malta.
Don't throw us. You can run away.
Call Malta, call Malta.
I have no enough account on the mobile. It will cut. Please, you have
Yes.
my number now. You call me, you please.
A very chilling video, though I don't suggest that you respond on behalf of the Coast Guard, the Italian Coast Guard. But again, it's that same issue of shifting the problem to others. And just for a little bit of context, in fact, this boat, which capsized 5 hours after this call, killing quite a few people on board, we heard that there were about 100 women, 100 children on board, that was twice as close to an Italian island as it was to Malta. But again, this idea that, you know, we have to safeguard our values, where does mercy fit in that? Not just mercy, but the obligation, the legal obligations of states towards refugees.
I'd suggest that we all make sure we don't shift responsibility. There is a responsibility to everyone. That would include the state we're standing in now, wouldn't it? It would include all the states in this region. It would include the brother states. It would include the Ummah. It would include everybody. It wouldn't just be the Italians. Now, the Italians, by the way, and let me just finish this
That's
point.
a valid issue, but let me respond to it.
Let me
because you
finish
mentioned
the
the
point.
states of the
Because
region, it's a valid issue. But unlike the European countries, allow me to just make this point, unlike the European countries,
I'll respond to two points.
They are not parties to the 1951 Refugee Convention. So the legal
Conveniently.
obligations are, well, it's just a fact.
Conveniently, isn't it?
But I'll let you carry on.
But this means that countries that are signatories to the Refugee Convention get more blame and more assumption that they are going to have to hold more of the burden than countries that didn't. And I'm suggesting to you that nobody should be able to absolve themselves from blame. But if you go to Italy now, and I don't know when you were last there, but it is not the case that this is going well in Italy, either for the migrants who are arriving or for the Italian population.
Isn't it
you
because
don't
the
see
resources
these
are not
people
being poured into this? Let's face it, the policies are not there, the resources aren't there.
I
isn't
see
about the
these
overwhelming
people when they
numbers.
arrive. I follow their stories. It is not the case just that they don't. You know, the local populations in Italy have. I've been to Lampedusa. I've seen the boats coming in. The local populations are extremely generous. They are extremely kind to the people. Most of the populations in Europe. Let's just not have this idea that Europeans are somehow incredibly cold-hearted.
No one is
Countries in
suggesting
Europe
that,
have
but
taken in
just
a
putting
lot
the
of people,
numbers
and they are
in-
trying to deal with a very big problem very swiftly.
Just putting the numbers in context, let me just mention
sure.
this very briefly. 3 million people sought asylum in Europe between 2015 and 2016. That's a fraction of the population of Europe, which is 508 million.
And Germany and Sweden took in 3% of the population in 1 year alone.
They did.
So we're not talking about negligible numbers, and you shouldn't pretend that
not
we are.
across the board, certainly. Douglas Murray, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a very interesting video, listening to Douglas Murray making his own point. But then one thing I want to say to us is, let's be very objective when we are making our criticism concerning immigration issues. When you look at, in a sense, this very video and then the point and the concern raised by Douglas Murray, then I think that there is a need for us to separate religion and then also immigration. Because when you look at this, Douglas raised a very important point, which is, what is Iran doing in Syria, and what is Russia also doing in Syria? And then when you look at and understand their political interference that is happening in Syria, Jordan is close by, Iran, and then also Turkey. So what happened that these people could not migrate to Turkey, or neither go through Iraq to Iran, or probably go to Jordan, but therefore these people decide to travel through the coast to Malta, and then possibly ended up in Italy in order for them to go to Europe in order for them to gain a better life. But then this is a situation that end up taking the lives of over 300 Syrians, you understand, at the cost of this. Of course, we listened to the phone conversation that happened between the captain and then possibly the authority of the Maltan or the Italian authority, because when you listen to the conversation, they were asking them if they have contact the Maltan authority, if they can be able to come to their aid. And then, like I said earlier, if we fail to be able to separate religion from immigration issues, then we'll keep on, you understand, having the same problem, and then keep on blaming Europe, you understand, for our own problem. I could say that Europe have truly tried, because Europe has been absorbing, has been taking in, you understand, people into their society, and because of that have led us, you understand, to come to this situation whereby people come with their different cultural values and then fail to be able to adapt and integrate to their host nation, and then that has resulted to some of the problems we are facing accommodating, and that's why you see Douglas, in a sense, was trying to raise some of this point in order to be able to educate us. So that's why I'm saying that let's be very objective in our criticism, so that at least we can be able to educate people on what they are supposed to do. And of course, I am from Africa, and of course I have been hearing people talking about how they travel through Libya in order for them to go through Italy. And then when you look at, in a sense, some of these things, these people actually risk their life, and a lot of people are losing their life at the cost of all these things in order for them to gain what? A greener pasture. But then ask yourself this very question: if the Italian authority are not even good, how do you think these people will be moving from that, following through those coasts in order for them to make it to Europe? Why? It's because of what? They are very accommodating. As Douglas, in a sense, was also mentioning that he actually went there, he went to the refugee camp, and he saw the situation over there, and then he feels like the Italian locals who lives over there, in a sense, they are very accommodating. They tends to receive, in a sense, these people, and then that is why some of these things keeps going on. Else otherwise, then some of these things, in a sense, could have been stopped. But nevertheless, we will not say that, in a sense, we are going to stop them or tell them, in a sense, not to do so, because these people, in a sense, keep moving for different reasons. Some could be is because of war, and some could be maybe probably because of education. Everybody have their own reasons to why they decide to move from one place to another. But then my own concern is, why can't these people just move to Iran? Why can't these people, in a sense, move to Turkey? Or why can't these people move to Jordan? Why do they have to take the risks, in a sense, for them to go through Malta and then subsequently maybe probably ending up, in a sense, in Italy? But then at the cost of it, we have been hearing about, in a sense, a lot of people losing their lives, in a sense, following, in a sense, that very coast. So if we do not able to separate, in a sense, religion from some of these things, and then speak about, in a sense, immigration, so that at least people should follow the right channel that they should follow when they are migrating from one nation to another. Of course, I know that the situation may be very difficult for some people, but then it's better for you to do the right thing in order for you to go and then maybe probably have for a better life, than for you to go through the course and at the end of the day end up losing their life. Then if you do so, then what have you done? But all I could say is that, if, you understand, probably like the way people like generalizing, in a sense, some of these challenges that people are having in most of these Middle East nation, people have failed to, you know, separate religion, and that's why you see these very journalists, in a sense, keep on, in a sense, emphasizing on the Europe, in a sense, not taking these people. It's not about taking these people, it's about, let's look at the primary, in a sense, reasons of them leaving Syria in the first place. Let's assume that Iran are not there, or let's just even look at it this way: what is Iran even doing there in the first place? What's Russia even doing there? And then why are they subjecting the people to this kind of poverty, to the point that these people, they just want to leave the country by all means? Unless some of those things, in a sense, are being addressed, then some of these things, in a sense, will keep coming. Some of these problems will keep coming over and over, and then you see these people, in a sense, we keep moving, and then we end up blaming Europe, whom are not even guilty of some of these things. This is not, in a sense, their fault. If they choose to accept them, fine, but then if they decide, in a sense, not to accept them, we can't be able to blame them. Even though those people, in a sense, that end up, in a sense, losing their lives, I know that the Europeans, in a sense, never pray for some of those people, in a sense, to lose their life. But first of all, why don't we look at, in a sense, what Russia and Iran are doing over there? If, you understand, some of those things that they are doing there, if there are some things that they are doing that is not favoring the people, that is making them to move away, you understand, from Syria, then why don't we address some of these issues? And then if there will be a diplomacy, then there should be a diplomacy within some of these nations, so that they can return, so that the people can actually enjoy some of their basic amenities that the government of Syria, in a sense, can also supply for them, instead of us, in a sense, going on blaming Europe for what, in a sense, they do not do. I believe that some of you agree with Douglas Murray about some of the points, in a sense, he raised, because as for me, I totally, in a sense, agree with him about some of the things, in a sense, he raised. Imagine that today I got married, and then probably I have a wife, and I decided I want to relocate to Iran. Will my wife be allowed to drive? You see, the Iranians have their own values. Britain also have their own values, and that's why there is a need for us to be able to integrate to some of these host nations by not bringing our cultural values and then try to impose it on them or try to force the host nation for them to accept our own cultural values. But instead, what we should do is that let's try to see how we can be able to integrate by tolerating, in a sense, some of these their values. And then in the process of that, that does not mean that we should go and compromise, in essence, our own values. But then at the same time, let's try to look at, in essence, some of the things that we can do. Not that we will come and tend to try to force things on them or try to impose, in essence, things on them. So this is the end of my video. If you like my reaction, you should like, share, and subscribe. If you have any video you want me to react to, don't forget to drop it at the comment section, and I'm going to check it out. So you remain blessed, and I see you in my next video. Bye bye.